This is problem number 7 from assessment number 6. It says, use an appropriate sum or difference identity to find the exact value of the expression sine of 13 pi over 12. So they want us to evaluate the sine of this angle. But if you notice that angle, 13 pi over 12, there's no denominator of 12 anywhere on the unit circle. In fact, our denominators are 2, 3, 4, and 6. So there's no angles on the unit circle with a denominator of 12. That gives us a problem there. Now we can solve this problem by splitting this 13 pi over 12 into an addition or a subtraction, and then we can use our sum and difference formulas, which we've learned about, to evaluate that. So, how I like to start the problem is I like to write the factors of 12 out. And it's not necessary to really do this, but I kind of like to do it. I got 3 and 4, and I've got 2 and 6. Now my goal is to take sine of 13 pi over 12 and rewrite that as sine of some pi over 12 plus sine of some pi, or plus pi over 12, some other number over 12. So I'm going to split this into an addition of two angles. So the thing I need to do is look at 13 pi and say, all right, how can I split 13 pi up? Well, if I split 13 pi up, I can split it up to 12 pi plus pi. Well, that doesn't really help us because pi is not going to reduce this denominator of 12. So I'm going to go to 11 pi plus 2 pi. Now 2 pi would reduce 12, but 11 pi doesn't reduce 12, so that's no good either. So then I'm going to go to 10 pi plus 3 pi. Now 3 pi will reduce 12, and 10 will reduce 12 as well because they're both even. So that's probably the addition. These are essentially the split of 13 pi that I need to use to give me my two angles to add. So I'm going to split that 13 to sine of 10 pi plus 3 pi over 12, which is going to give you sine of 10 pi over 12 plus 3 pi over 12, which gives you sine, if I divide both of those by 2, I get 5 pi over 6. If I divide this by 3, I get plus pi over 4. And so I can now say that this is sine 5 pi over 6 plus pi over 4. Now remember, 5 pi over 6 plus pi over 4 is 13 pi over 12. If you find a common denominator, that's what you'd get. But it gives us the power now to use this sum and difference formula for sine so that we can actually evaluate this. So we're going to say that that is sine of 5 pi over 6 cosine, remember that's times cosine of pi over 4 plus cosine of 5 pi over 6 times sine of pi over 4. So now we can go through on a unit circle and we can find those fractions. Well, we know sine of 5 pi over 6, sine is always the y-coordinate, 5 pi over 6 is here, sine of that is 1/2. So we can say 1/2 times, and cosine of pi over 4 is here, cosine's the x value, so that's root 2 over 2, plus cosine 5 pi over 6, so 5 pi over 6, cosine is negative root 3 over 2, so we say negative root 3 over 2, times sine of pi over 4. Well, sine of pi over 4 is the y value, which is root 2 over 2. Now that we have the fractions, we can evaluate those and say that that is root 2 over 4. That'll be minus root 3 times root 2 is going to be root 6 over 4. So I can combine that to say root 2 minus root 6 over 4. And that's the solution for sine of 13 pi over 12. That's our distance there, given that angle.